Hey everyone, you're looking to change the battery on your Grand Prix. Not entirely sure how to get it out of there. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Let's get right to it, shall we? And of course, this is what I'm talking about here. Of course, you see the battery's kind of buried between the frame over here and this cross member that runs, and you're like, well, how do I get this out? There's not a lot of room to play with or anything. How do I do this? Well, I'm going to show you. So, this is all you're going to need to do this job. Not much at all, actually. You're going to need a ratchet of some sort, something so you can help take off the bolts. This extension. This is actually a very long extension. You may not need one that long, but you will need one that's at least about that length there. And I have here 3 different sockets, a 13 millimeter, a 10 millimeter, and 11 millimeter. Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to take off that crossbar that runs along there. So that's taking off these 3 bolts here. And that's taking off a 13 millimeter socket that I showed you earlier. So you're just going to start by taking off. There's no particular order to take these off. You can actually use a drill if you want as well. But I'm just going to use the ratchet and socket. Pull that right off. Do note that the 2 bolts here are different than the one that's up higher. So these 2 you can, when you're putting it back, it really doesn't matter. But when you're doing the top one, that is different. Bar off, and in case you are wondering, this is the bolt that came from the upper side up there, and 2 like this identical came from down here, and you can see the difference. Next, you got to take out these 2 nuts here that holds the fuse box in place. Technically, if you really force it, you can get the battery out without taking this out, but why would you do that? That's just causing yourself unnecessary headache. And this is so easy to take off. You just loosen the one, and they're really easy. They're not on there. Even when you put them back on, you're going to put them on very lightly. They're not on very strong and hold on very hard at all. So you got those 2 off. You then grab your fuse box. And you just lift it right out. You can move it aside. Next, you're going to take out the 2 bolts that hold the battery terminals in place. That is one right there and one right there. Those are both 10 millimeters. You start off with the negative side first. That's the ground side, and that's the one with the little dash in case you don't know. So you're just going to go and just loosen it just enough that you can get the terminal right off. You're going to push that aside right behind the glove box there. Then you go to your positive. Same thing. Loosen it and pull it aside. The last thing you need is right down there. You need that extension I was showing you. You'll need the extension for that. That is another bolt you got to take out. The last bolt that's just holding the battery in place. There's nothing behind or anything, just that one. Okay, so you see I've now got an extra long extension on there, along with the 13 millimeter socket. Just gonna go and put that right on. Once you get it loose enough, I just take the ratchet off with the extension and just wheel it right out. It's a little quicker for me to do it like that. And that comes out. That's what it looks like right there. This can just come right out, as you can see. Now, with all the pieces in place, getting the battery out is still a little bit of a pain. What essentially you're doing, though, is you're taking the battery up and you're swinging it sideways to bring it out. So we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to take one hand, I'm going to move the fuse box as far to the side as possible. Hopefully you have a handle. It makes life so much easier. If you don't, well, you're still going to have to work around with it by lifting at the bottom. But if you have a handle, great. Most of the batteries come with the handle, actually. And as you lift, you're going to twist. Now, you won't have to deal with power wires. But you twist and bring it right out. All right, so putting everything back together is just the reverse. So you're going to grab your battery, and it's all about kind of moving it sideways. You're going to go in, drop it down. Watch out, there is a wire, hose that runs from here out down to your reservoir for your coolant. So you want to make sure that's not pinched, so it doesn't get rolled or anything like that. And then you're just going to kind of work it around, drop your handles, push in as far back as you can. Okay, so next up, you're going to put in that little anchor that goes at the bottom. So you're going to line it up. Now, when you line it up, you want to make sure that you're dropping the actual anchor piece itself down onto the lip. The battery will have a lip along the bottom. You want to make sure it's anchored on that because that's what's supposed to hold it in place. So you have the battery pushed back as much as possible, and you have that kind of braced down, so that's going to hold the battery in place so it doesn't move around as you drive. So I'll just go ahead and with the extension in the socket, I'm just going to feed that, make sure it's fed in. You want to make sure you're not cross-treading or anything like that, so because if you cross-tread, you're in big trouble trying to get that off after. Okay, basically get it to hand tight, which is where it is right now. I'm going to grab my ratchet. I'm going to give it more. Basically, I want to go till it gets about ratchet tight, and then give it a couple more turns, the equivalent of about 2 more full turns. Basically, right about there. I don't know what the specifications of the foot-pounds is, if there is one, but you just get basically, you go until it's about ratchet tight, so the ratchet starts tightening up, and then you give it another about half turn, full turn, and then it's all tight for what you need. So now you can put the fuse box back in. And it's pretty straightforward in putting it back, and I recommend doing it before just so you can get room to work around with the negative terminal and everything here. Now make sure when you're putting it back, you can see down here there's a slot. Let me show you. See? And you got to make sure that that is fitted into that slot. Sorry. There you go. So you can see. Let's get a better angle there. Here it is. So it's in the slot, right in there, in the body. You can see right down there. And then you'll put these up here and anchor them in. Alright, so now the slot's in place there. Make sure there's no wires or anything that's interfering with it. You can just work it. Make sure it's all attached, and you'll see this sits flush. And you can go ahead and put these. These you do not want to do tight in any way. You don't want to damage them, break them, or anything. Basically, I'm going here hand tight. Then I grab that 11mm socket. Once it's hand tight, I'm just going to go about a half turn on it. So it's about hand tight right now, and just another half turn. You'll feel it. You don't want to go very tight on this at all because you could damage it. That's it. Okay, so now you're going to put your positive on. So you're just going to grab the positive and bring it right around. Put it right on there and make sure it's down firmly. It's balanced with the terminal and everything. Then you're going to grab your 10mm. And you don't want to go to town with it, but you want to make sure it's very tight. You want to make sure that thing cannot slip off while you're driving. So you go to hand tight, which is about here. I'll go another quarter turn. That'll bring it nice and tight. Next up, you'll hook up the ground. Now when you do that, you may see some sparks. Don't be alarmed, perfectly normal. In this case, there wasn't really any sparks, but I heard just a very, very slight noise. Okay. Now we're just going to take our 10mm and our ratchet. I'm going to tighten that right up. Again, you want to get it good and tight. Give it a pull, make sure it can't come off. Now last up, you just got to put the crossbar in. So you just line that up, top hole there and the 2 bottom holes here. It wouldn't hurt if this is your first time taking this off or anything to give it a light sand, get any gunk or anything off of here and down here just so you have a better contact point. It's not necessary, but it's just the little touches, right? Now there's no real defined way in how to do this, but the way I do is I always kind of pre-tighten this one first. And then I'll move up to the upper one and the lower one. So again, we were using our 13 millimeter. See there, 13. I'm not going to go all the way tight, just so it's kind of held on pretty well. Remember, this is a bigger one at the top up here. At this point, I will tighten this one up. And then I'll go down to this bottom one right here. That one. Again, I don't know what the tightness on these, I'll be honest with you. All I've ever done is once again to hand tight. I do the equivalent of about 1 full extra turn. And that's it. You are ready to go. Everything is retightened and ready to go for you to start driving your wonderful Grand Prix once again. I do want to thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope it helped you. Feel free to like and subscribe. That definitely helps out. If you have any questions, anything at all, feel free to comment as well. I always answer whenever I can, however I can. And if you do dislike, do comment on that as well. I like to put out the best content possible. So if you dislike, let me know what was wrong with the video so I can always constantly improve it. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next video.